that isn't lived for others is not worth living. These are the words of Mother Teresa. And we all know that Mother Teresa was an extraordinary woman. Hers was a life that was lived for others. And I think we can honestly say that the life of Martha Jansen was a life that was lived for others. Not alone did Martha live for her family, which she loved. She lived for all the children and parents who were under her supervision as she was Director of Religious Education at Immaculate Conception Parish. Martha was a woman for others. We read in the life of Jesus as he walked his journey to the hill of Calvary. His body was very weak, and even his enemies were concerned that he wouldn't make it to the top of the hill of Calvary. So they asked a certain man named Simon to help Jesus carry the cross. And as we look over the last 9 years of Martha Jansen's life, it's as if we were all Simons helping Martha carry her cross. Because Martha shared her journey with us almost step by step through her emails and her phone calls and her letters. She kept us informed of her journey as she went through chemo and all the different steps she had to take in her journey of fighting pancreatic cancer. And of course, we saw Martha every Sunday in church. In the midst of her illness, she never stopped doing for others. She would come to Mass on Sunday. She was a Eucharistic minister. And we also know that when we asked her how she was doing, she would tell us. But she always said that the reason she was surmounting each crisis was because of the great support she received from people in the parish through their prayers and their letters. She talked about the power of faith, the power of prayer, and how she felt the power of the prayer as she went through each session of her journey fighting cancer. So in a sense, Martha looked upon many of us, if not all of us, as Simons who were helping her carry her cross. We just finished the Easter season, and through the 6 weeks following Easter Sunday, we had a beautiful tapestry on the wall here. It was on the resurrection. It was a painting done by a parishioner of ours named Joy Bushmeyer. But it's a beautiful presentation of the resurrection. And for many years, we've had that on the wall here, and we admired it during the 6 weeks following Easter Sunday. But this year, there was a difference. We kept the crucifix in front of it. Other years, we removed the crucifix so that people could focus completely on the resurrection. But this year, we made a change. We did not remove the crucifix. So we would look up and we would see the crucifix in front of the scene of the resurrection. And some people might have thought that that created conflict. They might have said, well, why not remove the crucifix? Like Holy Week is over, Good Friday is over, so let's focus on the resurrection. But no, we kept the crucifix in front of the resurrection. And it turned out to be a wonderful idea, because the truth is, the crucifixion is the door to the resurrection. We would never celebrate the resurrection of Christ if he didn't die, if he didn't go through his brutal death. And that's why we refer to the Friday before Easter Sunday as Good Friday, because it's by the willingness of Jesus to face the cross and face his death that he opened the door for the greatest happening of all, the resurrection, when he conquered sin and death and rose above all the limitations that could keep him confined. So as we looked up for those 6 weeks, as we looked up at the resurrection scene, we looked at it through the eyes of the crucifixion, through the door that is the crucifixion, because the crucifixion was the door to the resurrection. Good Friday is what made Easter Sunday possible. The death of Jesus is what made his resurrection from the dead possible. And you see, 6 weeks ago, we celebrated Holy Week. And what's Holy Week all about? Well, we spend the days of Holy Week focusing on the last days of Jesus before his death. His walk to his death on Calvary. And what's Holy Week all about? Holy Week really is all about Jesus showing us how to deal with the cross. You see, the cross is in everyone's life. All of you here in church, you have the cross in your life. Everyone has the cross. That's what Jesus said, or that's what Jesus meant when he said, if you want to be a follower of mine, take up your cross each day and follow me. And what did he mean by the cross? Well, he meant the challenges that you face every day. Because some of the challenges that you face are very difficult challenges. Life is not easy. Living life is not that easy. Just getting through life, surviving, paying the bills, going to work, dealing with problems, dealing with people, life is not easy. Some days life can be very difficult. And that's the cross that Jesus is referring to. He's telling us we must take up our cross each day and follow him. In other words, we mustn't run from the cross in our lives. We must shoulder the cross as he shouldered the cross. What Jesus said to us on Holy Week was, the way to get beyond the cross is to face the cross, shoulder the cross. And let the cross take us all the way through to the resurrection. And that's what Jesus is telling us. Through his death and resurrection, he showed us how to deal with the cross. And he's telling us if we deal with the cross properly, the cross will take us to a resurrection in our lives. And we do know that when Jesus was telling the apostles one day about what he would have to face, he said, I will have to go up to Jerusalem, and they will arrest me there, and they will crucify me and put me to death. And when Peter the apostle heard this, he said to Jesus, well, if they're going to arrest you and put you to death, well then don't go to Jerusalem. But Jesus turned to Peter and he said, get behind me, Satan. You're not judging by God's standards, you're judging by man's standards. And you see, Peter meant well. He didn't want his master to suffer. But Jesus was saying to Peter, Peter, the only way to deal with the cross is to face it. If we run from the cross, we'll be faced with a bigger cross. And that's the example Jesus is giving us. His is an example showing us how to deal with the cross in our lives. And you see, we can honestly say that Martha Jansen likewise is a wonderful example of how to deal with the cross. For 9 years, she has known she had pancreatic cancer, which is quite a cross in itself, because most people with pancreatic cancer don't survive longer than 1 year. Martha survived for 9 years. And through 8 of those 9 years, she underwent chemotherapy. But she was a wonderful example of how to deal with the cross, because Martha's smile, we'll never forget her smile. She would come to church on weekends. We would ask her how she was doing, and she would be very honest and tell us. Herself and John always together. And between John and Martha, we were being told of where she stood in her journey. But Martha was always smiling. She was not complaining. And the wonderful thing about Martha was that she continued to play tennis. All through her 8 years of chemo, she would go from chemotherapy to the tennis court, which was extraordinary. Her attitude was fantastic. Her approach was wonderful. And of course, she was aware that this came from her deep religious faith. She had such a strong faith, and she had such a strong love for life and for family, that she kept smiling. And she was a wonderful inspiration to everybody. So just as Jesus showed us how to deal with the cross, I think Martha Jansen was a perfect example of how to deal with the cross. And you see, every Holy Week, we have the Good Friday service. And part of the Good Friday service in church is what is called the adoration of the cross. We have a large cross here in the sanctuary of the church, and people come up from their pews one by one, and they kiss the cross. And it's a beautiful, beautiful ceremony as we watch the people come silently to the cross and kissing the cross. And then what's the purpose of kissing the cross? Why do people kiss the cross? Well, number one, they want to express their gratitude to Jesus for what he did for us. He was willing to die on the cross for all of us, to give his life for all of us. And that's why we kiss the cross. But there are two reasons for kissing the cross. And Jesus is trying to point that out to us. The second reason is Jesus is saying to us, you're willing to kiss the cross that I died on. You're willing to kiss the cross because you want to say thank you to me for my willingness to face the cross. But Jesus is saying to us, are you willing to kiss the cross in your own life? The cross that you have to meet every day. Are you willing to kiss that cross? Now, he's not saying you should welcome that cross. No. But he's saying, are you willing to face it and meet it as best you can, and realize that by facing it and maybe kissing it, that cross will take you to a higher place in your life. It'll take you through to another resurrection in your life. And that's what Martha did. In a sense, she kissed the cross that she had to face each day as she walked her journey through cancer and chemotherapy. So now, as we think about Martha and her life, and as we face the fact that God has called her home, we're left with a big, big cross. Her family are left with a big, big cross. And that cross is the fact that Martha is gone. She's no longer with us in the way she was. We will no longer see that smiling face. But we have wonderful pictures of that smiling face. In fact, the DVD presentation by the family on the life of Martha, which was shown last night at the vigil service, and will be shown again today at the Knights of Columbus Hall, that's a wonderful DVD to have. It's a meditation in itself, because it shows the smiling face of Martha in picture after picture, beautifully done to the sound of wonderful music. But the truth is, that's the cross we have to bear now. Martha is no longer with us in the way she was, but she's with us in a much deeper way, in a much better way. And that's what our faith is telling us. Martha is not gone. She's gone in the way that we knew her, but she's with us in a way that's much even deeper. And you see, we think about the death of Jesus. We're told that Jesus, when he was dying on the cross, he looked down and his mother stood at the foot of the cross. And that moment came for Jesus and Mary, for mother and child, for mother and son. We're told that Jesus looked down at his mother, and by the side of his mother stood John, the Apostle John. And Jesus said to John, "John, behold your mother." And then he looked at his mother Mary, and he said, "Mother, behold your son." In other words, he was handing his mother over to the Apostle John, asking John to take care of her. But you see, that moment came for Jesus and Mary, that moment when Jesus had to let go of his mother, and Mary had to let go of her son. And I'm sure they both felt deep pain. Mary didn't understand why her son had to die. And we're not quite sure exactly how much Jesus himself understood, because he was human and divine, and there were times when, in his humanity, he suffered deeply because he didn't understand it all. And that's why he cried out to his Father, "Father, if it's possible, take this chalice, take this pain away from me." So Jesus and Mary went through that pain of separation, letting go of each other. But then we know what happened 3 days later. Jesus came out of the grave and he appeared to his mother. And so that's what we have to look at right now. We have to let go of Martha. We're dealing with that cross. The family are dealing with that cross. But you see, what the death of Jesus is telling us, and what the resurrection of Jesus is telling us, is that just as Jesus is with us in a very powerful way, Martha Jansen is with us in a very powerful way. We read during the week at one of the masses, the gospel on the feast of the Ascension, when Jesus ascended into heaven. He had appeared to the apostles in his resurrection on many occasions. He had given them courage by the fact that he appeared to them after his death. But now he said to them, I have to go. I have to go back to my Father. I have to leave you now. And they pleaded with him not to go. But he said, I have to go. I have to go. If I do not go, the Holy Spirit will not come to you. And then he understood their pain, the pain of letting go. But he said, bear with the pain, trust the pain. Because he said, all this is happening so that my joy will be yours and your joy will be complete. You see, Martha went through what she had to go through. Her family have gone through what they had to go through. We've all gone through with Martha what she had to go through. We were the Simons helping her. But the truth is, Jesus came down to tell us. He said, I came that you might have life and have it to the full. None of us are living life to the full. We don't even know what it means to live life to the full. But that's why Jesus came. He wants us to live life to the full. And that's what the resurrection is about. That's what heaven is about. Jesus also said, I tell you all these things so that my joy may be yours and your joy may be complete. You see, we've all touched into joy in our lives. We know that Martha Jansen really touched into joy. She loved her family. She loved to celebrate. She loved her game of tennis. I played tennis with Martha for many hours through many years, and she was good at tennis. And the thing about it is, Martha, tennis, it's said that tennis is a love game. 15 love, 13 love, 30 love, 40 love. But Martha, maybe that's why she loved tennis, because she was a woman of love. But you see, Martha touched into joy. We've all touched into joy. But you see, Jesus said, I came that you may have joy and have it to the full. I came that your joy may be complete. And we don't know what complete joy is. We all know a joy that comes and goes. We enjoy it while we have it, but then it slips away. But we have every reason to believe right now that Martha Jansen has touched in to living life to the full. Martha Jansen, her joy now is complete, because now she's experiencing the very joy of Jesus. So that's what we have to hold on to now, because Martha's with us in a whole new way. She can't speak to us as she used to speak to us, but she's with us. And so that's the beauty. You know, the agony and the ecstasy. When we love somebody, we experience the joy of that love, the ecstasy of that love, but we also touch into the agony, which happens when we have to let go. So we're all grateful for our journey with Martha, grateful for what she has taught us, grateful for her courage, grateful for her love, grateful for her smile. And so now we must support each other and carry our crosses and be Simons for each other, as we were Simons for Martha. Amen.